The efficiency lie. Why the algorithm is your new boss, and why it should terrify you. Mid-shift, the app went gray. Orders vanished. Account under review. No phone number. No human. By sundown, a week's earnings sat behind a spinning icon. Rent due Friday. A form appeared. He filled it. 12 minutes later. Thank you for your patience. He'd nailed every metric. On time. 5 stars. 0 cancellations. Didn't matter. A line of code flipped, and his income disappeared. That's the moment your boss shows its face. It isn't a person, it's a model you can't see or question. Viral truth. You can't be your own boss if your boss is invisible. To see how it took power, rewind to the cell. The flexibility promise, the risk reality. They called it freedom. Be your own boss. Work when you want. No uniforms, no meetings, no manager peering over your shoulder. The pitch arrived in clean fonts and bright colors. Tap to earn, surge to win. Guaranteed bonuses if you keep your streak alive. Early adopters told friends they'd unlocked the upside. More money on their terms, with a map and a car as their office. But the math started hiding in the margins, and the psychology did too. It began with time. Not the hours on a shift. Those were gone, but the hours between pings. Every minute you waited unpaid. You drove toward a red-hot zone, then the heat cooled before you arrived. Dead miles piled up on odometers and gas cards. Tires wore out on the way to orders that never came. The app kept score. Your bank account didn't. Then came costs. The asset you needed? Yours. Car payments, e-bike subscriptions, phone plans, extra battery packs, commercial insurance if your city required it. Replace the brakes sooner because your route ran through hills. Oil changes on a tighter cycle because delivery routes don't care about engines. Depreciation didn't show up on the earnings screen, but it showed up when you tried to sell your car and the buyer pointed out the mileage. The tax bill arrived later, reminding you that the $200 day was never $200, not with self-employment taxes, not with no employer contributions. They shifted risk with a smile. Demand volatility, weather swings, stadium traffic after a lost game. Your problem. The platform's promise adjusted in real time. Busy in your area turned into consider expanding your zone. Meanwhile, acceptance rate warnings tightened the leash. Declined too many lowball orders, and suddenly you stopped seeing the decent ones. You were independent until you weren't. Schedules moved from calendars to queues. Instead of clocking in, you learned the rhythm. Lunch rush here, bar close there, Sunday night groceries, Monday morning airport runs. The app nudged with little confetti banners and milestone goals. You were $6 from your target, it said, as if your goal belonged to you. One more order kept you out for another hour. The hour you'd planned to be home. The story you were told. Entrepreneur. The reality? A worker with no floor, chasing variable pay, managed by metrics you couldn't see. The old workplace had supervisors. The new one had dashboards. Somewhere, a model watched your patterns and learned to keep you engaged. You felt free because you chose when to turn the app on. What you didn't choose was the structure that decided what you saw after you did. The entrepreneurs in the pitch deck weren't drivers at all. They were the companies. They owned the marketplace, set the prices, tuned the incentives, and moved the risk off their books and onto yours. A restaurant pays rent whether it's busy or empty. The platform doesn't. It throttles labor instead, your labor, until the line of cars matches the line of orders. If the algorithm overshoots, it doesn't carry idle time. You do. Meanwhile, the definition of performance got rewritten. On-time meant traffic was now a personal failing. Ratings turned customer mood into currency. A lukewarm coffee, a gate code typed wrong, a night when the wrong person answered the door. 1 star lingers and the app remembers. The promised appeal? Thanks for your feedback. The silent penalty. Fewer offers, longer waits, suspicion you can't disprove. Here's the psychological switch most people miss. Variable rewards and shifting rules keep you chasing. Intermittent bonuses, phantom surges, moving goalposts, classic variable interval reinforcement. You're not just working, you're being conditioned. The invisible boss isn't a person. It's a schedule of rewards that trains your choices while pretending you're in control. People adapted. They swapped maps in Telegram threads, learned which buildings ate minutes, which restaurants missed items, which zones promised surges that never arrived. They tracked their real hourly rate, not the screenshot earnings, but the truth. Total miles, all hours, actual costs. The numbers shocked them. On a good week, it worked. On a bad one, they floated fees on credit cards and hoped next week would hit. Here's where the framing cut deepest. Calling it flexibility made the old protections sound old-fashioned. Overtime becomes hustle. Benefits become personal responsibility. Sick days become log-off. But the landlord still wants the rent on the first. The pharmacy still wants the copay. The car still wants the payment. Flexibility doesn't move those due dates. It moves the risk of missing them. And yet, the promise stuck because it wasn't all false. There are days when the city lights up and the money feels easy. There are months when a second app fills the gaps of the first and your spreadsheet says you're ahead. There are people who treat it like a bridge and cross to something steadier. The trap isn't that it never works. The trap is that when it fails quietly, and the only person holding the downside is you. The efficiency story, the one that says software turns chaos into order, leaves out where the costs land. It celebrates the app's smoothness and calls the frayed edges user choice. It points to the average and hides the variance. But life is lived in the variance. The week you get sick, the storm that closes the bridge, the model that misprices demand. The day your account goes gray with a message that can't hear you knocking. Freedom was the sell. Measurement was the product. And once the meter ruled your day, you weren't choosing anymore. You were reacting to a system tuned to keep you moving. What nobody said out loud was simple. The algorithm didn't eliminate the boss. It made the boss invisible, and it learned exactly which levers keep you in motion. The algorithm became the boss. To see the switch flip from freedom to control, look at the rules you never agreed to but still have to follow. Acceptance rate, completion rate, on-time arrival. These aren't suggestions, they're levers. Miss a lever, and the day changes shape. You see fewer pings, or you get longer drives, or the surge vanishes just as you pull in. The app smiles in neutral tones, but it disciplines fast. The first signal is scarcity. You open the map and it glows. It doesn't. Surge zones pulse red. Your phone stays quiet. You decline one lowball offer. 8 miles for $4, and 2 more like it arrive in a row. Decline again, and the app warns you about quality standards. It never says penalty. It doesn't have to. Your queue goes thin, and suddenly you're out of area, even though you're parked beside the hotspot banner. Meanwhile, another meter climbs, utilization. Not one you see, but one the company tracks. A human manager would ask why your last hour was slow. The algorithm assumes you're the variable. It nudges you into busier settings, or it withholds priority access to scheduled blocks next week. If you keep missing opportunities, it moves you down a tier where quests pay less and caps arrive sooner. A ladder you can't see still has rungs you can slip on. Instant discipline lives in the gray areas. Soft bans that aren't called bans, just reduced availability. Shadow throttling that feels like bad luck, but lasts exactly long enough to change your behavior. A single cancellation to avoid a no-tip grocery run becomes a pattern the model flags. The next morning, your early access window shrinks. You weren't fired. You were cooled. What makes this stick is black box ranking. The platform says top performers unlock perks, early schedule drops, higher surge multipliers, stacked orders that finally make the math work. But the criteria shift. 1 week, acceptance rate matters. The next, reliability. Then it's ratings, a number weighted by moods you can't predict. 5 stars mean didn't disappoint. 4 stars mean lost a privilege. The appeal path. A help article and a chatbot that thanks you for the screenshot. Data runs one way. The company sees your heat maps, your dwell times, your parking spots that save 90 seconds at pickup. It can compare 1,000 people's routes to yours and conclude you should turn left, not right. You see none of that. Only whether today feels better than last Tuesday. When things go sideways, you're told to monitor your performance. With what tools? Your gut and a spreadsheet. Here's where measurement becomes management. If on-time delivery is the KPI, red lights become your responsibility. If average handle time drives bonuses, quality becomes a cost center. Drivers learn to mark arrived before they've parked, to front-run prep times and shave delay risk. Couriers tap delivered at the lobby to stop the clock, then take the elevator up. Everyone plays by rules that reward speed, even when speed breaks service. The model doesn't scold. It shapes. You're $6 from your goal, it says, after lowering your per-order pay by 50 cents. You're 2 deliveries from a $15 quest, it says, after it moved you 12 minutes from the nearest restaurant. Variable rewards hit on a schedule you can't predict. A small bonus pops on a dead Tuesday, then disappears Friday night. The loop is tight enough to keep you chasing, loose enough to feel like luck. Deactivation explains the power most clearly. There's no office to visit, no supervisor to sit across from with a stack of explanations. Fraud detection fires on false positives, GPS drift, mismatched selfies, a customer claiming never received. Your app goes gray mid-shift. Earnings freeze. A form promises review. A bot replies. Somewhere, a threshold tripped, and you lost more than your place in line. You lost recourse. Meanwhile, tiers gate pay. Gold, Platinum, Pro. Labels that suggest status, not access to the basics. Slots for next week's best hours drop at 3 p.m. for the top tier, 5 p.m. for the rest. Miss the window, and you're stuck with the midnight shift that ends in empty streets. The promise is simple. Stay in good standing, and you'll get more. The reality is circular. You need the good hours to stay in good standing. And then there's the quiet rewrite of who sets price. The app calls it dynamic pay, adjusting for distance, time, and market conditions. But when base rates slip while fees rise on the customer side, you learn the truth. Price is an instrument, not a reflection. The customer pays a service fee. The restaurant pays a commission. You get what's left. If the platform needs growth, it trims your slice first. If it needs demand, it advertises zero fees and expects your acceptance rate to backfill the gap. This is management without voices, policy without paper. It feels efficient because it's invisible. But ask anyone who's been cooled, throttled, or gray-screened. The boss isn't gone. The boss is everywhere the app can measure. Gamifying scarcity, dopamine, streaks, and surge bait. While those rules shape the day, the game design keeps you in it. Not solitaire, casino logic. The app builds a loop. Tease, nudge, reward, repeat. It starts with streaks. 5 orders in a row unlock a bonus. Miss one because a pickup slips or a gate code doesn't work, and the chain breaks. Suddenly you're doing mental math in a parking lot, hands on the wheel, bargaining with yourself to start over. You weren't planning another hour. The streak was. Quest stack on top. Complete 12 deliveries today for an extra $18. It sounds like found money until you hit delivery number 11 and the map cools. Now the bonus is a sunk cost in your head. Loss aversion kicks in. You'll chase that 12th even if the next offer pays less than gas. The model knows this because enough people have done it, enough times, to make it predictable. Then the heat map flares, reds and oranges blooming across a neighborhood you can almost see from where you are. Surge pricing, the banner says, with a juicy multiplier. You drive. By the time you cross to the bright zone, the color fades. Orders weren't there. You were the inventory. Phantom lures preposition workers, so the system won't have to wait later. If nobody orders, the platform still wins. It shifted risk to your tank and your time. This isn't just gamey. It's textbook behavioral design. Variable interval reinforcement is the engine. Inconsistent timing and intermittent rewards spike engagement and compulsive checking. Not every order pays well. Not every click triggers a perk. Tuesday tosses a random $6 add-on to a short hop. Friday's rush, when you expect premiums, trims base rates because demand covers the gap. Expectation is monetized. Anticipation, not payoff, is the hook. Meanwhile, the app narrates like a friend who knows your tells. You're $6 from your goal, whose goal is unclear. The number moves when per order pay dips. One more order to complete your streak. The banner lands right when you think about going home. Notifications are small, polite, and relentless. They arrive when your schedule is vulnerable. Dinner with your kids becomes 10 more minutes. 10 turns to 40 in the glow of a progress bar. Acceptance streak penalties lock in compliance. Decline too many lowball runs, and the system resets your streak counter. You haven't lost money. You've lost access to the multiplier that made the money make sense. So you take the junk to preserve the latter. It's a subtle exchange, quality now for the promise of quality later. You'd call it sunk cost fallacy if it didn't feel like survival. Surge bait isn't only color on a map. It's language. Busy near Arena District. You angle there with a dozen others thinking the same thought. Orders arrive, 2 at a time, stacked in a way that saves the platform miles and adds them to you. Double batch groceries routed across opposite ends of a complex. Food pickups from kitchens that can't finish simultaneously. The timer moves. Your bonus clock does too. Gamification reaches into identity. Badges pop gold, platinum, pro, with confetti that looks like achievement and acts like retention. Tiers promise early access to next week's best hours, but the criteria float. Keep acceptance above 80% or 90%, or this week. Maintain on time above a threshold the app doesn't define. You've been good, says the banner. Stay good, and you won't fall. The fear isn't missing a perk. It's losing a scaffold you've built your month on. Workers started comparing notes. In private groups, they mapped real surges against heat map surges. Real surges had lines out the door and staff yelling for help. Phantom surges didn't. They learned to wait 2 blocks off the glow and watch order flow before committing. They tracked when quests dried up and when the model tried to cool them with dead zones after a declined order. They called it weather, but it followed a pattern: show up, slow down, nudge compliance, then resume. The psychology runs deeper than points and stars. It trims friction where it helps the platform and adds friction where it helps compliance. Instant accept buttons glide. Decline taps require confirmation. Unpaid wait time is invisible. Countdowns for bonuses are vivid and loud. Parking tickets and ticketed lots? Your problem. The app's timer stays indifferent, humming while you circle the block. None of this is accidental. The same research that taught social apps to hold attention taught work apps to hold labor. Expectation triggers dopamine. Anticipation is engineered. So the system keeps you close to payoff, but not quite there. You're nearly done. Almost at your target. Just shy of the next tier. The tension is the product. And when the week ends, the scoreboard rolls over. New quests appear. New surge shapes paint the grid. You tell yourself you'll ignore the banners, drive only the profitable runs, log off at 8. Then a notification lands. Extra $12 in your area for the next 45 minutes. The system smiles. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. You've learned the game, and the game has learned you. White-collar gigification, the contagion. While the apps train drivers to chase streaks, something quieter spread up the ladder. The same playbook, metrics, tiers, and on-demand staffing, moved into jobs that once ran on trust and professional judgment. They didn't call it gigs. They called it modernization. Start in a hospital hallway at 6 a.m. A charge nurse stares at a staffing app that looks suspiciously like a rideshare map. Open shifts scroll past with countdown clocks. ICU nights, Metis URG doubles, ER float. Nurses tap to bid in dollars per hour above base, watching the rate flicker with demand. A snowstorm rolls in, the price jumps. By lunch, the surge cools and the shift vanishes. Meanwhile, on-time starts and bed-turn intervals sit on a dashboard like delivery KPIs. You can't chart compassion. You can chart minutes. This isn't hypothetical. Marketplace staffing apps already auction shifts in major hospital systems, with rates surging during flu spikes, storms, or holidays. Some hospitals cap bids or add regulatory adjustments to cover platform fees while claiming labor flexibility. On the floor, nurses feel the auction logic. Cover the shift, meet the interval, push throughput, care translated into countdowns. The moral twist lands in trauma bays. A senior nurse stays late so a new grad isn't alone on a code. The app records a delay. The metric stings at review. Her raise falls a tier because the bed-turn clock doesn't care about mentorship. When hospitals outsource scheduling to marketplaces, the unit becomes a grid where care sells by the hour to the highest or fastest tap, and cancellations ripple through reliability scores that gate future visibility. Law followed. Associates used to hustle for partner trust. Now a portal posts briefs like delivery jobs. Fixed fee memos with timers, preferred contributor badges, utilization dashboards that color your week green or red. You accept a rush filing at a price the system sets. If you push back, an alert warns your win rate may fall. Partners love the optics. Predictable margins, no idle bench. Juniors learn the new game. Strip work into microtasks, hit the stopwatch, optimize billables per minute. Judgment yields to velocity because the platform grades speed. One attorney tells a friend she spent 3 nights rewriting a motion that should have been a conversation. The client never meets her. The portal rates her, meets expectations, because the timer was clean. The partner forwards a dashboard. Great efficiency. She deletes the draft email that started with, "Here's what the judge will actually care about." Media saw the shift earlier than most. Writers file into content queues where headlines pre-score on predicted CTR. A piece about a corrupt zoning board tanks because it's too local. A listicle about habits of billionaires rockets. So rates for listicles rise while investigations sit at $75 with kill fees. Recommendation engines throttle reach, and reach sets pay. A freelancer's best work disappears under not relevant to current trends. The algorithm isn't censoring. It's sorting, and sorted work eats sorted lives. Software development didn't escape. Sprint velocity, story points, burn down charts, useful tools turn into pressure gauges. Contractor pods bid for epics like squads on a playing field. The lowest promise with the highest velocity wins the SOW. Deliver too carefully, and your points look bad next to a team that redefines done. Refactors get deferred because they don't map to a KPI. Managers say they trust the team. Procurement says it trusts dashboards. Trust loses the tiebreak. Underneath, the Contagion runs on the same mechanics gig platforms perfected. Deskilling turns complex roles into slices the marketplace can price. Microtasking strips context, so anyone can take a piece. Score-driven access gates the good work behind tiers that seem objective but shift when budgets tighten. And because all of it sits behind friendly interfaces, the changes feel like progress until the human parts thin out. Here's the part nobody writes into the FAQ. When platforms set the price and decide the queue, the market fiction gets loud. Nurses bid, but the hospital caps rates. Lawyers choose, but the portal controls visibility. Coders compete, but preferred vendors win before the ticket posts. It looks like freedom at a glance. It acts like a funnel when you need it most. Meanwhile, oversight detaches from outcomes. ICU dashboards celebrate faster turns while burnout climbs and error reporting lags. Law clients cheer fixed fees, while junior attrition erases institutional memory. Teams ship features on schedule, while technical debt compounds off-screen. The metric moves. The meaning doesn't. Workers adapt here too. Nurses text outside the app to cover nights for people with kids, building shadow schedules where trust still matters. Associates form group chats to swap intel on fair dealing partners and time syncs. Developers log their own quality metrics, bug density, on-call pages, because velocity won't save you at 3 a.m. Media collectives share analytics to prove what the platform hides. Impact that doesn't click in 10 minutes can still bend policy. But adaptation doesn't solve the core trap, classification without forms. On paper, you're staff. In practice, your calendar is a marketplace. One missed metric, one lowered tier, and your week evaporates without a meeting, a warning, or a name attached. It's the same invisible boss, now wearing a suit. If the gig rules could live in hospitals, courts, newsrooms, and code repos, the next question wasn't will it spread. It was what happens when the law still says employee on paper, like owner, contractor in practice. To see how the rules slip, look at control tests written for factory floors and office desks, then hold them up to an app. The law asks simple questions. Who sets your schedule? Who supplies the tools? Who controls the manner and means of work? On paper, the answers look safe. No set schedule, bring your own car, you decide the route. In practice, the app sets the when through early access tiers, the what through acceptance thresholds, and the how through on-time KPIs that punish deviation. You're independent, inside a maze built by someone else. Misclassification isn't just paperwork, it's incentive. If the company can label you a contractor, it avoids payroll taxes, workers' comp, overtime, sick leave, and the messy parts of management. The savings are real, so the design follows the money. You choose your hours, until next week's priority blocks depend on this week's acceptance rate. You choose your route, until late penalties and timer design force the fastest path. You choose your tools, until mandated phone models, MDM software, and selfie checks turn your device into the company's badge. Arbitration clauses close the door before you knock. Somewhere in the sign-up flow, between a cheerful "let's get earning" and a checkbox, you agreed to individual arbitration. That means no class action, no public discovery, no leverage built from shared experience. If the app shorted you pay, you go alone. If you were deactivated without cause, you argue with a bot, then a private forum that can't set precedent. Even winning doesn't change the system. It just puts your case in a file nobody else can cite. The appeal void widens the gap. A customer says never received. The fraud model fires. Your account grays out. You submit pictures, GPS pins, a lobby video still. A canned response arrives. We could not verify. You're told to file through arbitration if you disagree. Meanwhile, the week's earnings sit frozen past rent day. The platform reports 0 deactivations without cause because, technically, cause is model-flagged risk. The definition is circular, the outcome is concrete. Jurisdiction hopping turns regulation into a map game. The platform is headquartered in one state, routes payments through another, stores data in a third, and points to terms governed by a fourth. A city council passes a transparency rule. The company argues the rule conflicts with state law. A state sets minimum per mile rates. The platform tweaks job packaging, so the metric no longer applies. Local inspectors ask for algorithmic criteria. The company cites trade secrets and offers principles instead of thresholds. By the time someone wins a ruling, the code has changed. Price fiction keeps the market story intact. Prices are set by supply and demand. They say, while a model moves base pay down during peak hours because demand already exists. Customers see service fees climb. Restaurants see commissions rise. Workers see per-order rates drift lower. Everyone pays more into the same pipe, and the platform's take grows. A true market needs price discovery. A closed market needs compliance. The app sells discovery on the front end and enforces compliance on the back. Meanwhile, the company answers control tests with props. We don't set schedules, they say, while the best slots drop to top-tier workers at specific release windows. We don't supervise, they say, while lateness, route deviation, and chat response times feed a score that gates access. We don't discipline, they say, while cooling and throttling quietly steer behavior. The labels stay neat. The lived reality says manager. One courier learned this the week his child got sick. He logged off mid-quest to drive to urgent care. His on-time percentage dipped. The next week, early access vanished. The only blocks left were graveyard hours in empty zones. He wrote support. A bot thanked him for his feedback and suggested driving during busy periods to improve metrics. He wasn't denied leave. He was priced out of it. White-collar workers find the same trap dressed in HR language. Nurses see flex pools where the app empowers choice, then discover rejected shifts lower a reliability score that controls future visibility. Junior lawyers see autonomy over workload, then watch a portal bury assignments after a missed timer. Software contractors hear outcomes over hours, then spend nights gaming velocity so procurement renews the SOW. Employee on paper, contractor in practice, subordinate in outcome. Power concentrates in the appeal vacuum. The platform claims safety and fairness, but declines to share audit logs, false positive rates, or deactivation thresholds. We continuously improve, they say, which translates to, we reserve the right to change the rules that govern your income without notice. Workers build their own records, screen captures, route logs, client texts, because evidence is there only. Leverage. Even then, arbitration keeps that leverage tucked away where it can't help the next person. Here's the trap's efficiency. It lets firms harvest employer-level control without employer-level obligations. The code sets expectations, the scores enforce them, the contracts isolate disputes, and the jurisdiction map defers accountability. You're free until you try to change anything. Then you learn what the app already knows. Control isn't a memo anymore. It's a model, and the model never signs its name. Renting the means of work. Here's where the trap tightens. When you don't own the tools of your trade, you rent them, sometimes from the very company paying you. The bill shows up before the paycheck does. Start with the vehicle. Platforms partner with fleet companies to lease cars, optimized for earning. Weekly rates look manageable until you add mandatory insurance, mileage caps, and fees for excessive wear. Delivery routes are excessive by design. Miss a payment, the ignition locks. You can still see your past earnings in the app. You just can't start the engine that makes the next ones. E-bikes brought the same logic to two wheels. Subscription programs promise maintenance and battery swaps. The fine print lists service windows that don't match peak hours, and GPS tethers that shut the bike down outside tightly drawn zones. If rain pushes you off route, the motor cuts to protect the asset. Not you their asset. Your legs carry the rest. Then come the seats you rent to touch the work you do, software licenses. White-collar workers know this drill. An editor pays for the pro tier that unlocks deliverable formats a client requires. A developer buys seats for a tool their contracting firm mandates. The cost floats off invoices, masked as professionalism. Companies call it flexibility. The charge hits your card. Device surveillance makes your phone both badge and leash. Mobile device management turns on app lists you can't delete, location pings you can't mute, and selfie checks that fail when a front camera smudges. Miss a liveness prompt, your shift ends. At home, a content moderator's webcam remains active after the queue drains because idle time is scrutinized like theft. The meter runs one way. Take rates rise quietly. On launch week, the platform takes 15%. By quarter's end, it's 20%, then 25% on certain jobs to maintain marketplace quality. The customer pays a service fee. You cover the distance. Everyone funds the middle. If you want more visibility, there's an option, pay to compete. Boost your profile for the lunch rush. Bid for priority on inbound orders. Sound familiar? It's ad space in a labor market. A courier named Rena tried the boosts. $10 to lift her in the queue during a downtown surge. Orders came faster, short hops, low tips, base rates trimmed. Her net after the boost? Worse than the week before. She wrote support. The bot thanked her for investing in growth and recommended another promotion during dinner. She didn't fall for it twice. Restaurants feel it too. To avoid deactivation, kitchens pay for priority placement in the carousel. The platform promises exposure. The fee becomes table stakes. Margins thin. Menus nudge up. Workers get blamed for late food as printers spit tickets in triplicate. The machine upstream rents everyone's surface area and calls it partnership. In nursing, renting looks like preferred network, status on a staffing app. To see the good shifts, you subscribe. Premium unlocks instant notifications, analytics on which units post late, and auto-bid tools that place you first. The hospital pays the platform. The nurse pays it too. When rates dip, both subsidize the same coordination layer that introduced the volatility. Developers chasing contracts on marketplaces meet verification tiers. Identity checks cost one fee, skill badges cost another, faster payment costs a cut, dispute resolution costs a retainer. Suddenly your hourly is a headline. The realized rate looks like an invoice with holes. Even the basics come branded. Thermal bags with QR codes, phone mounts that maximize safety, dash cams that feed into incident review portals you can't access. Subsidies cover the first kit, replacements cost double. If a safety audit flags your gear as non-compliant, your account cools until you purchase the approved model. Independent on the outside, rent to operate on the inside. The platform doesn't absorb depreciation. You do. The company doesn't feel the scrape of a curb while you rush a double-stacked order. You pay for the alignment. The company doesn't wait in a dead elevator. Your timer does, and it counts only in one direction. When a storm floods your route, surge banners flash and fees rise. The platform's margin swells on the same conditions that ruin your night. Some workers push back. Co-ops buy vehicles collectively, negotiate fleet insurance, and lease to members at cost. A few cities back e-bike libraries. Independent. Software guilds pool licenses and set standards clients must accept. These experiments work until the platform rewrites its quality rules to exclude them or weights search toward verified partners who pay for the stamp. Then there's the quiet tax of uncertainty. To hedge against surprise deactivation, people keep spare devices with fresh accounts, extra chargers, backup bags. They pay for dual SIMs to dodge dead zones. They rent a storage unit to keep gear safe between gigs because home isn't close to the good hours. Every dollar parked in redundancy is a dollar that won't buy time off. The most expensive rent isn't equipment. It's distribution. Access to customers, eyes, orders, shifts, belongs to whoever owns the doorway. The platform controls that doorway and bills rent in slices. Take rates, boosts, subscriptions, convenience fees scissored from both sides. When margins squeeze, code doesn't tighten its belt. You do, by paying more to stand in the same line. A friend who'd driven 3 years said it flat. I don't have a boss, I have a landlord. And he lives in my phone. The efficiency lie exposed. Here's the line they love to repeat. Software squeezes out waste, so everyone wins. Your time gets optimized, the customer gets speed, the platform gets scale. What's missing is where the savings go, and who pays when the model is wrong. Start with pay per task. As the network improves, the app claims it can predict demand, bundle jobs, preposition labor, and shave idle minutes. Sounds like a raise by math. In practice, base rates slip a little at a time while fees on the customer side inch up. The spread doesn't land in your pocket. It lands in the margin. Productivity rises. Earn per mile slides. If you want the old rate back, you're told to chase streaks you didn't invent. Externalized costs keep the story clean. Sick days move off the books because you're flexible. Downtime vanishes because you log off. Insurance becomes your problem unless a car hits you on a hotline definition of the job. Training turns into YouTube videos watched on your own time with your own data plan. Efficiency, as the platform measures it, means shifting every volatile expense onto someone else and calling the remainder success. Then there are KPIs that miss what matters. Average handle time beats quality. On-time arrivals beat safe driving. Arrived taps beat curb space that doesn't exist. You're graded against clocks the platform designed and roads nobody can control. A human manager would adjust for the fire drill blocking the lobby. A metric doesn't. It records the delay and invites the next delay by rewarding whoever gambled harder. Safety bends under faster. Couriers learn to start orders early to protect streaks. Nurses learn to clear beds faster to hit bed turn goals. Warehouse pickers shave steps to keep scanner beeps green. You can document the unsurprising fallout. Near misses, ergonomic injuries, burnout. But those don't post to the dashboard that decides next week's quotas. The number moves. The risk hides. There's fragility baked into the model, too. A single mispriced afternoon can ripple across a city. The surge flares where orders won't be. Labor moves like a tide because the heat map said so. Real demand pops elsewhere. The queue clogs. Customers wait. Ratings dip. Workers chase multipliers that disappeared 10 minutes ago. Restaurants panic. Support drowns in chat messages. When the system resets, the correction shows up as learning. Meanwhile, you ate the dead miles and the cancellations to help it learn. Weather turns optimization into guesswork. A storm blows in. The platform passes the risk. Customers see fees climb. Restaurants see cut after cut. Workers see busy in your area banners that pull them into flooded blocks. The model's lesson is a portfolio line. Volatility can be priced. Your lesson is a line at a tow yard because no one shut the zone. Efficiency at scale rewards the system that can treat disasters as parameters. People aren't parameters. The black box keeps the lie intact. If the company shared its deactivation false positive rate, we could weigh the trade-offs. If it published its throttle thresholds, we could evaluate fairness. If it opened its pay formula, we could test whether distance, time, and market conditions still mean what they used to. Instead, you get, we're always improving detection. Improvement is hard to contest when you can't see the baseline. Meanwhile, the everyone wins marketing relies on averages. The average hour looks fine. The variance breaks lives. A week of good runs collapses under one gray screen day you can't reverse. A quarter of steady shifts evaporates when your tier falls and your early access goes with it. That variance doesn't show on the investor slide about efficiency gains. It shows up in late rent. Efficiency also centralizes leverage. Once the platform coordinates the market, optimization decisions act like policy. Switch the default tap to accept. Reset streaks after 2 declines. Move the surge window. Compress base rates by a nickel. Expand the delivery radius by a mile. Each tweak is small. Together they decide who can afford to keep playing. No memo, no vote, no meeting, just a graph changing slope. Here's the test. If efficiency were shared, we'd see durable floors. Minimum earnings per hour after costs, guaranteed appeal rights, audited safety buffers in the KPI stack, and models that degrade gracefully during shocks. Instead, we see rising take rates, pay-to-compete features, and support funds framed as generosity while clawbacks hide in the terms. When something breaks, the algorithm learns, but the tuition comes from your time, your tank, your back. Workers keep proving what real efficiency looks like. Pooled data to dodge phantom surges, cooperative schedules that cover care and school runs, stable assignments that build skill and reduce error. Those moves reduce waste without draining people. The platform could support that. It doesn't because the savings wouldn't flow through the right column. So the lie sits there, polished and plausible. Software makes it smoother, not fairer. The gains get captured. The losses get privatized. And the only truly efficient thing about the system is how cleanly it hides who pays for the smoothness. Crises as feature. How volatility becomes revenue. Watch what happens when chaos hits. A stadium empties in a downpour. Roads flood. Kitchens fall behind. The map ignites with surge banners. $5 extra here, 2.x there. Customers see busy area premiums. Restaurants see higher commissions. Workers see the carrot they've been trained to chase. The platform sees something cleaner, volatility it can price. Spikes are the model's favorite weather. Disaster surging pushes margins without negotiation. A thunderstorm becomes a line item. A blizzard turns into winter operations fee. During wildfires, evacuation zones flicker on and off. Support pages urge drivers to use caution while fee multipliers climb. The algorithm doesn't call it disaster. It calls it demand. Penalties sneak in while the banner glows. Late metrics tighten during the very minutes nobody can move. A closed bridge turns a 12-minute trip into 40. The countdown doesn't care. Cancellations to avoid unsafe routes trip reliability thresholds. The next morning you find your early access window shrunk. People assume surge offsets risk. The app offsets risk by charging everyone more and disciplining whoever blinks. In these moments, rules change midstream. Handoffs shift to leave at door only. Buildings lock down. Guests stop answering phones. Customer unreachable becomes a trap. Tap too soon and you're flagged. Wait too long and you miss your quest. The platform's support funds appear on queue, framed as help. Fine print says eligibility subject to verification. Screenshots from the lobby won't prove the elevator died. Meanwhile, the fee stack grows. Customers pay an emergency fee. Restaurants pay busy market adjustments. Workers get a surge that looks good until base rates shave $1 to balance customer experience. Everyone funds the volatility except the entity that controls the screen. PR posts about heroes keeping cities moving. Quietly, clawbacks adjust earnings if a customer disputes in the window the storm made inevitable. Risk markets bloom wherever uncertainty lives. Dynamic pricing doesn't just follow demand, it manufactures urgency. A banner with ticking minutes whispers, "Act now," while the model tests how much pain each side will bear. You can see it in the tiny experiments. Higher fees for orders crossing a rain line, lower base pay for trips inside a self-declared sustained demand zone. The knob turns both ways. It only ratchets one direction. Here's the split between story and practice. Publicly, the company names safety first. Internally, throughput rules. Drivers receive tips to avoid standing water, while routing still sends them through the flooded underpass. Restaurants get emails praising resilience while penalties accrue for late-ready tickets. The platform's risk is reputational. Yours is physical and financial. One resolves with a press release, the other ends at a tow lot. After the storm passes, receipts keep the spike. Temporary fees linger under new labels. Restaurants who accepted fee holidays see commissions normalize higher than before. Workers who leaned on guaranteed earnings during the crisis discover guarantees net out against every surge dollar they thought they earned. The system praises stability, then banks instability as margin. Some places pushed back. A city mandates minimum per mile pay during emergencies. The platform responds with regulatory fees pinned directly to the checkout page, $4 to $5 tacked on with a polite note. Demand dips. Small restaurants watch orders slide. Workers watch tips shrink as customers balk. Headlines say policy backfired. The platform says it complied. The fee did the talking. It's tidy finance. Volatility becomes a product the platform sells to all sides. Insurance in everything but name, priced by the minute, payable by whoever can't walk away. A driver stuck in a downpour can't negotiate. A restaurant staring at Friday night tickets can't log off. A family needing groceries during a smoke event won't wait for next week. The model knows this because it has the history to prove it. Appeals vanish when chaos peaks. Fraud systems, tuned to normal patterns, see anomalies everywhere. GPS drifts in heavy weather. Identity checks fail on fogged cameras. Never received claims spike when people shelter in place. Deactivations follow the graph. Later, support restores some accounts, apologizing for false positives. Lost weeks don't return. Rent doesn't recalculate. Workers tried their own volatility hedge. Collective pauses in storm-locked zones. Group chats agreeing to decline unsafe routes en masse. For an hour, the map cools. Support begs people to help the community. Then incentives bump. Someone bites because they need it now. The coordination breaks. The platform logs a lesson about surge levels, not a note about safety. You can learn to read the tells. Sudden busy area banners without matching order flow. Guarantees that coincide with base rate cuts. PR about support funds paired with stricter late thresholds. When you see them together, you know the play. Turn uncertainty into revenue, outcomes into optics, and human risk into a price point the graph can optimize. Opaque fairness, the crisis
Scoring,
passes, bias, and the
feature
appeal
void.
void. Fairness is the part of the app that talks like a promise and acts like a fog. Everything important runs on scores you can't see, influenced by people you'll never meet, ruled by thresholds nobody will explain. The platform calls it safety and quality. Workers call it roulette with your rent on the table. Start with shadow ratings. Customers tap stars fast, often for reasons that have nothing to do with the job. A driver with an accent gets dinged because the gate code didn't work. A courier gets a 1-star because the restaurant sealed a bag missing fries. A nurse on a staffing app loses reliability, points for declining a back-to-back ICU shift after a 12-hour night. The model tallies it all as performance. Bias in, bias out, then multiplied by math that's supposed to correct it, but rarely does. The appeal path is an exercise in patience theater. You upload photos, timestamps, lobby cams when you have them. A bot thanks you for your documentation and restates policy. If you're lucky, a human reads the ticket days later. If you're unlucky, the final decision arrives in minutes. Either way, there's no audit log, no citation of the rule you broke, just a line about maintaining standards. Try asking for the false positive rate. The reply: trade secrets protect community safety. Fraud detection compounds the mess. GPS drifts in dense blocks. The phone thinks you're a building over. A customer hits never arrived because they can't find the package their roommate brought in. The model flags a pattern after 3 unrelated incidents. Gray screen. We detected unusual activity. Submit a selfie. The liveness check fails on a smudged camera or low light. Try again. The timer locks you out for 24 hours, enough to miss a rent cushion. Later, support apologizes for any inconvenience. Inconvenience doesn't pay late fees. Identity mismatches trip landmines. A name change, a new haircut, a different pair of glasses. All can nudge a face match below threshold. Meanwhile, scammers spoof gigs with cloned apps that reroute orders. The platform tightens checks. Real people get caught. Fake accounts slip through until the next patch. Each fix adds friction on the worker side and cover on the company side. Security requires strict enforcement. Bias hides in customer preference flags. You deliver to a building that consistently tips low and rates harsh. Your queue fills with that zip code because your completion rate there is high. Someone else with early access schemes premium orders somewhere else. The algorithm isn't punishing you, it insists it's matching efficiently. But efficiency looks suspiciously like channeling some workers into worse demand and calling it neutral. In white-collar portals, it's even cleaner. A junior lawyer's win rate drops after refusing absurd timelines. The portal surfaces fewer briefs. Reviews cite communication tone when she flags client risk. She thinks about the partner who once taught her to fight bad instructions. Now a score decides whether she ever sees those instructions again. The platform says decorum matters. What matters is compliance. Ask for an audit, you get a policy page. Ask for a human, you get a callback window during your shift. The worker forums are full of micro-stories that rhyme. The detail that changes is the app, the arc doesn't. Someone mispronounces a name and gets a 3-star they can't contest. Someone is asked to cross a picket line, they decline, their reliability dips. Someone refuses a grocery run with no tip displayed, declines stack, early access disappears. The message is consistent. Fairness is a narrative asset, not an accessible process. Platforms launder reputation while sealing the ledger. Press releases tout transparency commitments. Dashboards show community standards enforcement. Numbers are aggregated to protect privacy, which ends up protecting opacity. External researchers ask to audit bias in ratings. The answer is a blog post about fairness by design. Meanwhile, the workers who could supply ground truth are bound by terms that threaten deactivation for sharing internal tools. A courier named Janelle tracked every delivery for a month. Photos at door, timestamps, GPS dots, tip outcomes, star ratings. On week 3, a deactivation notice. Delivery issues. She emailed a zip of evidence, annotated. The reply thanked her for her passion and linked to the same policy. She filed arbitration. 3 months later, she won reinstatement. The award covered her filing fee. The lost income lived in the gap between model and mailbox. People build workarounds because systems won't fix themselves. Drivers swap scripts for support chats that increase odds of human review. Nurses screenshot shift screens to prove last-minute cancellations weren't their fault. Creatives batch post to control for algorithmic cold starts. Developers log error budgets to counter velocity theater. These tactics help. At the margins, they don't touch the core, a one-way mirror where you're always visible and the rules never are. What nobody at the top admits is that opaque scoring isn't a bug. It's the governance model. Ambiguity lets platforms tune outcomes without accountability. Bias can be explained away as edge cases. False positives become collateral. The illusion of fairness holds because most weeks, most people skate by. When the week breaks, you discover what held you up wasn't due process. It was luck. If the rules are unwinnable and the appeal is a void, the next move is inevitable. People stop playing the game straight. They start building their own. Worker tactics, hacking the algorithm. When fairness is a fog, people start bringing their own flashlights. The first tactic is simple: share the map the app won't. In group chats with names you won't find in an app store, drivers pool microdata, order timestamps, pickup lag by restaurant, average payout by zip, cancellation rates by building. A courier posts, Elm Towers adds 7 minutes, do not accept stack there. Another adds a heat check. Surge glow, no line at kitchen, likely phantom. Over weeks, a spreadsheet becomes a shadow dashboard. The platform sees the city in aggregates. Workers redraw it in truths. Real surges versus color bait, blessed loading zones versus ticket traps, elevators that stall the clock. Some groups run open source North Stars. Simple scripts that log offers, miles, and pay, then surface your real hourly after costs. When your number dips below baseline, the tool pings. Time to switch zones, switch apps, or log off. A driver named Malik built a bot that reads notifications and flags offers that look like traps. Long grocery lists with low base pay, stacked orders to opposite ends of a complex. It doesn't accept for him. It restores the friction the platform removed. Decline becomes a decision again, not a panic. Collective pauses are the blunt instrument. Nobody calls them strikes. Nobody wants a target on their back. But when a platform cools a zone after a wave of declines, chats light up. Off for 30 in Midtown at 6:15. If enough people sit, the map fades. Sometimes the platform bumps incentives faster. Sometimes it emails community appreciation notes with a surge that actually holds. The pause isn't a union. It's a momentary reweighting. Workers testing whether absence can move the graph. Multi-apping is the everyday hedge. 2 phones, 3 logins, muscle memory for which app will stiff you on base pay and which app will stiff you on distance. You watch both maps. One offers a short hot hop, the other a long cold run with a fake multiplier. You take the hop, then kill the long run before acceptance penalties kick in. It's legal threading of timers, and it works until it doesn't, until a fraud model flags unusual session switching and asks for selfies while you're in a loading zone. Stacking is the tightrope. 2 orders, 2 apps, 1 route stitched by experience. You know the kitchens, which one lags, which one prints tickets fast. Done right, stacking turns variable pay into a stable hour. Done wrong, it burns ratings on both sides. Most veterans don't chase every stack. They chase the ones with recoveries. The lobbies where a doorman signs, the garages with free grace periods, the office where security keeps a dolly by the elevator. Some go further, spoofing their location with a spare device in a different zone to unlock early blocks, reserved for locals. It's risky. The fraud system smells VPNs and drift. Those who try don't brag. The penalty is gray screen. The safer hack is softer. Drive just outside the glow, park where exit to grid takes seconds, and wait for real order flow before committing. Phantom surges can't pull you if you don't move. Evidence building becomes a habit. Time-stamped photos at door, short videos of empty lobbies, quick clips of restaurant ticket screens when items are missing. Not for social media, for arbitration. A worker named Janelle turned her evidence into nudges for others. 2 picks, wide then close, lower your dispute time by days. It doesn't fix the appeal void. It shortens the part you can control. White-collar workers build parallel systems too. Nurses form whisper networks around staffing apps. Which units cancel late, which managers revenge rate, which shifts underreport acuity. They text to cover each other, so a parent can sleep after a code, bypassing an auction that punishes caregiving. Lawyers swap screenshots of portal briefs with gotcha timelines and share safe clients lists. the ones who don't weaponize tone in reviews to lower rates. Developers push back on velocity theater with hard metrics. Incident pages, regression counts, toil hours. When procurement waves a green burn down, a lead replies with page lists at 3 a.m. and wins room to refactor. Then there are co-ops that turn tactics into structure. Couriers in one city created a worker-owned delivery platform for independent restaurants, no dark fees, transparent pay per mile, human appeal, fixed floors. It didn't replace the giants. It gave a second shift, steady hours that stabilize a week. A nurse collective negotiates as a block with hospitals for ICU coverage, setting minimum rest between bids and publishing cancellation penalties in plain view. A creative guild standardizes rates for algorithmic platforms, sharing reach analytics so irrelevant labels can't erase impact. Portable benefits pilots turn wandering into a safety net. Associations collect cents per task across apps into sick pay and injury funds. Not charity, contractual. Members join, platforms contribute under city rules, and a third-party administrator, chosen by workers, holds the pot. One group set up a rapid response fund for gray screens. Small grants that bridge a deactivation week so rent doesn't spiral. There's risk in all of it. Platforms rewrite terms to ban coordinated activity. Weight search against non-verified providers, throttle accounts that look suspiciously synchronized. Workers adapt again. Fewer public posts, more ephemeral chats, rotating leads so no single person carries the heat. The point isn't to break the system. It's to carve breathing room inside it. Some tactics are just humane defaults disguised as hacks. No night deliveries past a certain block unless 2 people go. Pair a veteran with a new nurse on the first trauma shift regardless of the bed turn clock. Log off after 8 if your real hourly falls below X for 2 hours. They look like softness until you count injuries, errors, and burnout months later. The spreadsheets agree, restraint pays. None of these moves fixes the asymmetry. They do something smaller and vital, put agency back in the day. The app still measures. The model still nudges. But for a few hours, the screen doesn't have the only map. People do. Policy reality check. What worked? What backfired? Cities and states tried to redraw the rules. Some changes landed. Others ricocheted back on the very people they were supposed to help. Minimum floors were the first lever. A city set per mile and per minute baselines for deliveries and rides so earnings wouldn't sink below costs on slow nights. For a while, pay stabilized. People could plan a week without counting only on streaks. Transparency mandates helped too. Apps had to show distance, destination area, and estimated pay before acceptance. Hidden miles dropped. Fewer drivers showed up to find a gated tower with no parking for a $3 payout. Deactivation due process sounded wonky until it saved rent. Rules forced platforms to send notice, cite a reason, and offer human review before cutting someone off. False positives didn't vanish, but model-flagged risk had to meet a standard. Screenshots and timestamps got read by a person, not just parsed by a bot. A handful of states pushed for audit trails on safety systems. What triggered the alert when how often mistakes occur? The logs weren't public, but they existed, and appeals improved because of them. Portable benefits pilots turned slogans into receipts. Sector funds, seeded by pennies per order across platforms, covered sick days and injury stipends. People could log off with the flu without blowing up a month. It wasn't a pension. It was a floor you could stand on. A few experiments went further, sectoral bargaining boards setting minimums across competing apps, so one company couldn't win by racing pay down. It's dull language until a heat map turns red and your floor holds anyway. Then came the backfires. Whenever a city raised the floor, the apps wrote new math. Orders were repackaged as bundles, so minimums applied once per batch. Base pay shrank while guarantees appeared. Tops up that looked generous in a notification and netted out against every surge you chased. Some platforms quietly expanded delivery radiuses to make per-mile math look fairer on paper while gutting hourly reality in traffic. The nastiest lesson arrived with fees. After Seattle and New York enacted strong pay standards, $4 to $5 regulatory fees appeared at checkout with polite labels about local rules. Customers balked. Order volume dipped. Small restaurants watched revenue fall. Workers saw tips shrink as diners split the difference. Headlines framed the laws as job killers. The apps shrugged compliance, they said. The fee did the politics for them. Exit threats became tactics. A platform announced it would pause operations in a city unless formulas were rewritten. It didn't need to leave forever. A week of blackout hurt independent kitchens, spooked city councils, and reminded workers who controlled the doorway. When the company returned, it did so under a pilot, with carve-outs that softened the floor and strengthened the knobs in code. Location carve-outs were quieter, but just as effective. Geofences drew rings around high-traffic districts where floors didn't apply because of special operational constraints. Drivers learned to avoid the very zones that used to pay most because rules dissolved at the boundary. A mile inside the ring, guarantees became goals again. Outside, the floor held. The map trained people to chase safety, not sense. Transparency had limits too. Mandated disclosures showed distance and estimated pay, but not the model's throttle thresholds or how acceptance streaks really moved access. Workers could see the price of a job, they still couldn't see the price of saying no. Appeals improved at the edge and remained void in the center. A city could demand a human read a ticket. It couldn't demand the company admit how often the model was wrong. There were bright spots. Human review requirements stopped some of the worst deactivation spirals. Cities with real enforcement funding, inspectors who understood dashboards, attorneys who could parse contracts, saw fewer games. Public dashboards reporting aggregate pay levels forced platforms to behave better in the quarters leading up to a hearing. One city required that emergency surges automatically suspend late penalties. Suddenly, storms didn't double as discipline traps. But regulation moved slow, and code moved daily. Every fix invited a workaround. A per-minute floor led to longer quoted times and lower base rates. A pay disclosure rule met a new acceptance streak penalty that punished declines without saying so. A benefits fund grew while take rates did too, making workers feel like they were paying themselves with their own cut. That's the part policymakers missed. You can set a floor and still let the ceiling collapse. If the algorithm can retaliate with fees on customers, shrink visibility for workers, and shift definitions midweek, it will. A rule that doesn't anticipate the knob invites the knob to turn. So people built personal policy. Multi-apping became a rite of exit at the tap level. Baseline rate alerts replaced wishful thinking. Log off when net hourly drops. Co-ops drafted their own due process and published it, daring platforms to compete on fairness. Associations raised strike funds for gray screen weeks. None of this replaced law. It bought time until law grows teeth. Meanwhile, one lesson stuck. Transparency and process work best when they're paired with consequences the platform can't reroute. A hard per hour after expenses during active time, automatic penalty suspensions during declared emergencies, a ban on line item, regulatory fees, without disclosure of actual cost, and audits by independent bodies with access to code. Anything less, and the policy becomes content for a blog post. Personal defensive algorithm playbook keeps writing the rules. If the app writes the rules, your first defense is to write your own. Not speeches, systems you can run when you're tired, late, and tempted by a glowing surge that isn't real. Start with income resilience. Treat platforms like weather, not employers. Build a mix that always includes one baseline anchor, something contract-like with predictable hours, even if pay is lower per task. A restaurant-run delivery route 2 nights a week. A steady client for 2 freelance edits every Friday. A hospital float pool you can book a month ahead. The anchor won't make you rich. It makes your week survivable when the map lies. Layer opportunistic work on top in fixed windows you set in advance. Tuesday/Thursday 5 to 9 only, unless net hourly after costs clears X for 2 consecutive hours. Write X down and honor it. When the number dips, log off. The app will ping you with extra $8 in your area. It's noise. Your rule removes the slot machine from your shift. Next, cost control. Run total hourly accounting, not vibes. Every week, capture miles, wait time, tolls, tickets, depreciation. Set a schedule, oil, tires, battery fund. If you're on an e-bike, budget tubes, chains, brake pads, ponchos. For white collar, list seat licenses, cloud storage, premium tools, broadband. Your real hourly is payouts plus tips minus costs / active hours. If that number falls below your floor for 2 back-to-back sessions, switch zones, switch apps, or stop for the day. It feels harsh. It saves you from chasing sunk costs. Build your depreciation schedule. For a car, plan to replace tires at X miles, brakes at Y. Set aside Z cents per mile into a separate account the app never touches. For phones, assume a 2-year life under constant use. Buy a spare used handset and keep it clean for selfie checks. When a liveness prompt fails on your sticky daily driver, the spare keeps you from losing the night to a false lockout. Now data rights. Download everything you can every month. Ride logs, delivery histories, ratings, support chats, deactivation notices. Don't trust the platform to keep them visible. Mirror them in cloud folders labeled by date. Snap a wide and close photo at delivery with door numbers and time on lock screen. When a fraud model flags you, you'll have evidence with timestamps that compress the appeal window. If you never need it, good. If you do, it's the difference between a polite no and a reinstatement check. Keep an independent ledger. A simple sheet with columns. Offer time, quoted pay, actual pay, miles, minutes, tip display shown or hidden, building/friction notes. Patterns will surface. Which zips lag, which kitchens misbag, which app's haircut base pay on Fridays. Workers in your city know plenty. Your sheet teaches your week. Treat safety as a rule, not a wish. Hard lines. No flooded routes. No night deliveries past specific blocks. No lobby drop if the building feels wrong. Call, reschedule, eat the penalty if you must. Pair up on certain hours. Rotate a buddy on speed dial. Night visibility gear isn't a flex. It's accident insurance you control. If a platform tightens late thresholds during a storm, override it with your rule to log off. Rent is cheaper than a tow plus a wrist brace. Schedule recovery like work. 2 real days off per week if you can, 1 if you can't. Stack the week so your anchor lands before your wild cards. If you're white collar and sprint land, reserve no meeting focus blocks and protect them. Burnout looks profitable until week 12 eats your month. Build small strike funds in layers. First, a 7-day gray screen cushion, cash you can reach without fees. Then injury buffer, at least the deductible on your health plan or urgent care cash. Then tool failure, tires, a spare phone, a battery. Drip a fixed % of every payout into each bucket until they're full, then maintain. It's boring. Boring pays on bad weeks. Practice right of exit. Keep 2 active platforms minimum, 3 if your city supports it. Maintain good standing on the anchor, even when you're leaning on the opportunist. If one app retaliates with invisible throttles, you don't plead, you pivot. Your dignity is worth more than a streak. Join or build a collective. Not hashtags, practical. A chat where people post phantom surges, safe zones, and courthouse security on edge. A pooled insurance group. A co-op shift board for night cover. A shared list of kitchens that bad rate. Portable benefits associations that skim cents per task into sick pay. You won't fix the system alone. You can buy each other margin. For white collar, write guardrails into scopes. Define done in code and contract. Attach acceptance criteria that protect refactor time. Log error budgets alongside velocity. In staffing apps, screenshot shift terms before you tap. Confirm cancel penalties in writing. Keep copies. Use templated scripts for client pushes that protect tone scores while preserving truth. This timeline risks X, choosing Y. Preserves Z outcome. Finally, rehearse your deactivation drill. A checklist on paper. Switch to anchor. Notify rent buffer. File evidence pack. Request human review. If denied, trigger arbitration with template language. Ping the collective for bridge shifts or mutual aid. Running this plan once before you need it cuts panic in half. This playbook won't make the app fair. It will make you harder to push around. The model optimizes averages. You live in specifics. Write rules that serve the life on your side of the screen, then keep them when the glow gets loud. Building an algorithmic middle class. If the algorithm can be a boss, it can also be a contract, clear, auditable, and shared. That's the pivot. Stop fighting shadows, start building rails. Not utopia. A livable lane where code coordinates work without erasing agency. Begin with open standards platforms. Think Rails, not walled gardens. A delivery app where route data, pay formulas, and safety thresholds are specified in public schemas. Versioned, testable, forkable. Scores don't vanish behind trust and safety. They're computed by auditable models with published inputs and appealable outputs. A nurse staffing exchange where shift acuity, cancellation rules, and rest windows are machine-readable and enforceable by any client, not just the marketplace. You shouldn't need a brand to verify a fact. The standard should. Transparent scoring is the spine. Replace secret tiers with metrics workers can see and contest. Late thresholds tied to real-world constraints. weather flags, elevator outages, declared emergencies, pulled from public APIs. False positives are measured and published. Identity checks failed 1.8% this quarter, resolution median 4 hours. Appeals include a human lane with deadlines measured in days, not vibes. No more roulette. If the metric moves money, the metric earns sunlight. Floors come next, then shares. A floor and share model guarantees a real hourly after expenses during active time, measured by open telemetry you control. Above that floor, profit sharing kicks in. Not PR bonuses, contracts that distribute a fixed % of net margin back to the people who made the spike possible. A stadium surge stops being a one-way rake. It becomes a dividend tied to receipts you can verify. When margins swell, your cut arrives without a streak to chase. Ownership changes incentives. Worker-owned marketplaces already exist in small pockets. Co-op delivery for independent restaurants, nurse collectives for ICU coverage, creative guilds that set transparent rates. Scale them with public infrastructure. Identity that isn't a commercial hostage. Government-backed, wallet-based credentials workers control, with privacy by default and consented proofs for platforms. Payments that settle instantly over open rails with automatic splits. Wages to you, cents to portable benefits, taxes to an escrow you can't forget. Benefits that travel where you do, sick pay, injury coverage, and retirement contributions attached to the person, funded per task across employers, administered by entities workers elect. Governance belongs in the loop. Sector councils with teeth, workers, restaurants or clients, and platforms, setting baseline terms that software must honor to transact in a city. Not advisory boards. Binding rules with audit rights, penalty schedules, and an obligation to publish enforcement stats. When code changes the landscape, governance shouldn't lag a quarter behind. It should live at the interface, pre-commit hooks for labor. Some fixes are simple if you design for people. Safety first defaults freeze penalty systems during declared emergencies and map closures. Acceptance frictions invert. Single tap decline, confirm to accept when pay is below floor. Wait time counts as labor when caused by platform or partner delay. Algorithmic throttling must carry a reason code workers can see and challenge. If a model discovers fraud, it logs the feature that mattered. If it's wrong, it learns without ending a rent week. Data rights make tactics durable. A worker-side vault, encrypted, portable, captures your logs, ratings, and appeal outcomes automatically through the standard. You grant an auditor view-only access when a dispute arises. Collective tools plug in. Route heat maps that distinguish real surge from color bait, kitchen lag trackers that reduce wasted minutes, neighborhood safety notes that reroute by consent. The platform sees aggregates. You see the city as it is. Will incumbents sign up? Not without pressure. That's where procurement and policy meet. Cities can require open standard compliance to operate, the way they require accessible curb cuts. Major clients, hospital systems, national brands, can demand transparent scoring for the vendors staffing their floors. Insurers can reward auditable safety buffers with lower premiums. Investors can stop pretending opacity is a moat and start pricing litigation risk correctly. In the meantime, co-ops can win on. Churn. Fewer deactivations, steadier hours, lower error rates. Stability sells. None of this erases trade-offs. Floors cost money. Shares trim margins. Appeals slow discipline. But compare the cost of fairness to the cost of churn, gray screens, and burned-out crews. Real efficiency doesn't mean squeezing people. It means reducing the chaos tax we've been paying in time, tires, tickets, and second phones. Picture a week inside this lane. You claim blocks through a co-op that interfaces with multiple platforms via open rails. Your baseline is guaranteed and visible. When a storm hits, late penalties auto-suspend. Hazard pay toggles on by rule. Routes avoid flooded underpasses flagged by city sensors. A restaurant delays an order. Your clock counts. A customer disputes delivery. Your vault shares photo proofs with the appeal bot and a human bound to a 48-hour SLA. Friday settles. The app shows your floor, your share, and your contribution to your own sick fund. The screen didn't treat you like inventory. It treated you like a participant. We don't need a flawless system. We need systems that fail in decent ways. Auditable models, human exits, floors you can stand on, shares you can expect. That's what a middle class looks like in an algorithmic economy. Less a class than a cockpit, with dials you can read and controls that respond when you move them. We started with deactivation in a parking lot. A reactivation in this world isn't a mercy email. It's a reset on terms you can see, contest, and change without begging a bot. That's not romance. That's design, resolution, and meaning. Code can coordinate at scale without turning people into parts, but only if we force it to show its math and share its gains. If you want the playbooks and receipts, subscribe and pass this on. Watch the next deep dive on spotting coercive gamification in any app you use, and how to unwind it in